all along, there have been a lot of good reasons during the last 7 years when the rally could have ended, it seemed, and there were some times when we fell 17%, 20%. The Fed was there each of those times. Now the Fed is not going to be there, and if there is some trouble, I don't know that the market ends, but 5 to 10%, something like that happens. Markets trade. And I don't think that there's anything right now on the horizon that suggests we're going to have any sort of a flip of the market. We're just 1.5% from the all-time high. But as you said earlier, there's some pretty dark news out there, and at any moment, something that we've taken, or at least are set aside and not really paid attention to as far as the market goes, like relations with China or Russia, or disturbances of trade, those things could have an effect on the market. And if the Fed's not going to be there, which they have been throughout this rally, then it could kind of get interesting. But I don't see anything right now.
I wonder if it would be a geopolitical thing or a legislative disappointment, or I wonder what it would be, or whether it would even be anything. Sometimes the market we don't even find out till after the market corrects what it was looking.
Yeah, that's I mean, how much has been priced in of the outlook of for Trump to get things done? When a couple of months ago there was the expectation that some of these big plans would already be in train, and we're not quite sure how much of that was priced in. I think you can see some of that in the 10-year note. We got up to 260, and then since the Fed made a move, we fell back on yield pretty significantly. Get a little bit lower, under 230, and then technically it could be a very interesting story.
The news cycle,
yeah, I mean,
the news cycle is insane right now. I mean, it's I mean, it was a week ago, and it was Nunes, recused himself, and we thought we're going back on the. Got to find out what happened before the election, and suddenly we're talking about Russia, but we're not talking about that part of Russia at all anymore. Now we're talking about a totally different. Now we're like at Putin's throat. It's bizarre, Lindsay. Anyway.
Yeah.
How does this play into what happens with the economy? Does uncertainty cause people in a position like CEOs and others to do things? Does it cause them to maybe not act like we've seen we've made that point in the past?
Well, I think that an increase in uncertainty is certainly going to undo some of the optimism that has been carrying the market for quite some time under this idea that the Trump administration is going to usher in all of this pro-growth initiatives. But really, the reality of the economy has not changed. Remember, Q1 GDP is shaping up to be just about 1%. March employment report on Friday, very disappointing, with downward revisions to January and February. So you're talking about the weakest monthly gain in terms of job creation since last year, May. We also talk about a slight slowdown in manufacturing and the service sector. So there really isn't a bright spot that has justified this continued optimism in the equity market. And yet now all of a sudden we do have this geopolitical uncertainty, this geopolitical risk that is maybe shaping the focus a bit differently, despite the fact that the economic data all along has suggested a very moderate and tempered conditions in the U.S.